We are dealing with a well-researched paper from Katarina. I would like to flag a methodological issue, though, that is methodological but very severely affects the content. The issue is that when you have a large advisory mission as ours, it's 170 people, working with a large range of government institutions. It is a process of an advisory role that cannot be looked at entirely from one side. It really needs to be looked from both sides. And therefore, the convenient and comfortable omission by the author of looking at the receptivity of our partners to reform is something that is really missing very badly from this analysis. And of course, I would urge the author to add it because it's important. So that is really a methodological issue that I would like to flag. Now, the genesis of this mission, which is really, as Katarina said in her introduction, it's an unprecedented joint effort by the Ukrainian government and by the European Union. The genesis of this effort goes back to a very, very dramatic period, the spring of 2014. As Katarina said, the Ukrainian government hoped not only from the European Union, from NATO, from the United States, help obviously and understandably from particularly in addressing the immediate needs related to the military aggression and the illegal annexation of Crimea. Now, the European Union has offered a help after the discussion of the 28 member states, and you have to understand that on the common security and defense policy, decisions happen as a consensus decision of the 28 member states. The European Union has offered assistance with reforming the civilian security sectors. It doesn't mean that member states and also the US, Canada, and NATO don't help with the military side, but it does mean that the European Union common security and defense policy has established the ramifications of this assistance. Some people may have felt disappointed, but I do want to defend this decision, not on the basis of should we have promised more, but on the basis of whether this is a vital issue for Ukraine's sovereignty or not. Reform of the civilian security sector. And I would argue that given the hybrid warfare that has been conducted against Ukraine's state sovereignty, strengthening the state bodies is an absolutely vital function and a vital precondition for Ukraine's survival and prosperity as a state. So the European Union's offer that has been happily accepted by the Ukrainian authorities has really established a vital, important area to target, which is, again, the civilian security sector reform. Katarina, in her paper, very rightly points out a semantical issue, and that is that security sector means a little different in Ukrainian, also in Russian, coming from the Soviet tradition, than in the European Union's language. but I would argue also that even this clarification is already part of the reform process. Why? Because security, by historical tradition here, is centered exclusively on the state sometimes. And here, if you create a balance where you need a strong state based on strong citizenry and the human rights and state institutions that work properly and functionally, is in itself, this understanding is itself a first step towards reform of these organizations. So this is a good thing. There was a difference, and I'm particularly happy to have my dear friend Alexander Litvinenko here, with whom we have had this conversation for now a year and 4 months on this thing, and his feedback was also quite instrumental, clarifying our planners' ideas about Ukraine's challenge. So this clarification of the task in itself is an important part of the reform. Now, the decision about the mission establishment happened in July 2014, and we declared final operational capability in July 2015. So we are really talking about a mission of 3 months, 4 months maximum, because the preparatory phase was really not a full-fledged mission. I also have to say that a common security and defense policy mission is a fantastic thing because it can allocate a very large resource from the European Union member states towards helping Ukraine, but it also has its own procedural requirements in terms of establishing a diplomatic status, which we only got in March 2015, and also establishing all the organizational prerequisites to have a large organization accommodated. We worked from a hotel room for 6, 7 months, 8 months. We worked, you know, without vehicles, and we still work without landlines, only mobile telephones, etc., etc. It's not about to complain about this issue, but to really put in perspective what you can expect from a startup, and to say that out of necessity, a CSDP, Common Security and Defense Policy organization, it takes time on both sides, on our side, but particularly on the host country side, to really establish. So now we are really established, and I have a very, very good news to you that the mission is really extremely robustly engaged with the Ukrainian authorities on an everyday basis. And I can quote you a few examples of this. I will not give you a full list of common achievements between the Ukrainian government and the mission, because it would crowd out Alexander from speaking, and undoubtedly he has very, very important things to say.
I'm so sorry for the interruption, but I think if you say this, it would be much better than me.
No.
Much better. Я думаю, що наші журналісти набагато краще сприймуть слова про досягнення з ваших вуст.
No, we will not want to crowd you out for sure.
Sorry.
But one of the important issues has been particularly background to the aggression in the spring 2014 is the state of affairs in the police. So we have helped the police reform through a very, very heavy and strong involvement with the law on national police. The mission has advised very deeply the shaping of this reform, It's not a perfect reform, but it's a perfect law, but it's a very, very significant step ahead towards demilitarization of police, putting in place proper procedures for hiring, and this way to undercut corruption in the police forces. We also have helped with what is called now the model police station, but originally it was the Sambir police project. We basically designed it together with the ministry and Mr. Zaharov, also very able assistance. And now it is being regarded by Minister Avakov as the model for police reorganization in the more rural areas, and with also far-reaching implications for the patrol police. This is a well-documented fact, and we are very pleased about it. So in police, I think with our help, reforms are underway. So is the situation with prosecution. And prosecution, we all regard as a very, very fundamental part of the reform of law enforcement and justice, given the earlier unreformed character of prosecution. There we helped again with the law on the public prosecutor's office, but also we are helping very actively with the reorganization on the so-called local prosecutors' offices. We are observing the tenders. We help with the tests, preparing the tests at the like. So it has been a very important work. It also means, and Katarina very rightly points out this question about drafting laws and implementing reforms. As she knows, I have been for the whole period advocating for the mission to be deeply involved with the implementation of laws. There is a perception to be fully generalized among our member states, and that is the following. In a country like Ukraine, you enact the best law. It doesn't mean that you have implemented it. You really have to help with the implementation as well. Quite recently there was a very great study that pointed to the difference between the practice of local police stations relative to the law. The same can be said on the basis of our regional outreach efforts to prosecution. So there's one thing the law, and the other is how this law is implemented. And the mission through those tools that I have already mentioned, and also many others, is starting to help with the implementation. And the analysis is quite right that this strategic review that is going on about the mandate of the mission in Brussels hopefully will make it even clearer and even more robust that we should help with the implementation and not only in the design of the reforms. We are also helping with implementing the visa liberalization action plan conditions. As you know, the European Commission is quite eager to have the Ukrainian authorities to accelerate the fulfillment of these requirements, so that the positive political momentum can be maintained and ultimately arrive to a visa-free situation for Ukrainian citizens. We help in many areas, including the witness protection legislation that is so important. Then there is something that may not be as, how should I say, immediately sexy from a journalistic point of view, but absolutely critical for criminal procedures, is to have a proper delineation of functions, most importantly investigative functions in the criminal procedures. We have advised the modification of the Article 216 of the Criminal Procedural Code. It may sound very technical, but this is really the core issue in the delineation of powers. And it is really important. Why? Because if it is properly defined who does what in the criminal proceedings, corruption can be very, very seriously reduced in the process, and also organizations can focus on what their core mandate is. If organizations are very widely spread in terms of everybody can do criminal investigations in an insufficiently defined fashion, what you may end up with is that they don't focus enough on their core mandate. So there are many, many areas. I have mentioned probably some of the core issues where we think that our contribution has been quite critical to what? To creating a critical mass of reforms that make the reforms both irreversible as well as reaching the point, and this is really important, where the citizens of Ukraine feel that the state actually is reforming, because there are two constituencies that I am looking at particularly strongly. One is the citizens, and that's why the patrol police, which is a small segment of the police, but it has been very important because it really shows that change can happen. And the other is foreign investors. Ukraine badly needs foreign investors. You can't have foreign investment if any private businessman, let's speak frankly, any private businessman's interests can lead to a criminal procedure against even the best foreign investors. I will not name them, but they complain a lot, believe me. They are taken to the court on phony basis. This is deadly. And also, journalists, if somebody is not happy with them, they are taken to the court. In Odessa, there is a Polish citizen who has been held without any tangible reasons for 4 years in custody, and still no verdict against him. And of course, he is he's suffering from this injustice. And you have many, many such issues that really tell us that we do need a critical mass of reforms where not all citizens, but perhaps the majority, not all foreign investors, but a large majority says, Ukraine is now different. We are investing. Ukraine is now different. I'm going to vote for this change. So that is really what we need. We need to achieve that point. And that leads me to my last point, and that is coordination of reforms. And Alexander knows that this has been a challenge for us all along this period, whether from the start of building up the mission or since full operational capability. Reforms of what we practically deal with, the deep state, without the military. It really does need coordinated efforts. And it's even enough to look at the newspapers these days to see that between the different parts of the government there is still a room to improve coordinated efforts, and it does need it. So let me use and let me actually add one more area here. You are trying to. Why is the patrol police so successful? There are three components: changing the rules, changing the people, and giving them decent salaries. And if you think about it and you try to apply it to other areas, you see the gaps. Prosecution. There is this large-scale reorganization of prosecution, but at the same time, wages are frozen at the level of 2012. 60 euros, 100 euros. 60 up to 100 base salaries. I have to say that with these salaries, it's very unrealistic to expect, and I'm happy that I see agreement with me on this, it's very unrealistic to expect that these new prosecutors will be doing their jobs honestly for this salary. You have to create the conditions. Wherever you reform the rules, you reform the people, whether it's through attestation or a larger scale replacement. It's up to the authorities. But you also have to add the possibility for them to survive on salary. So salary reform in these sectors, connected to the rest of the reforms, is vital. So once again, this is what I wanted to tell you in short. Obviously, there is tons more, and I will be very happy to answer questions as long as you have the stamina to sustain me. I am very proud of the way the mission has engaged in this very short time with the Ukrainian authorities. I also want to thank the Ukrainian authorities for a very warm reception and a very open-minded reception. Inevitably, you know, doing reforms is a big struggle, and we are looking forward to continue until the Ukrainian state will be reformed to the extent that some other post-communist countries have been reformed in the last quarter century.